My name is André-François Giroux. I'm the Consul General of Canada, and it's my great honor to welcome you back to the afternoon session. But before we get going, I would like to start by acknowledging the traditional custodian of the land on which we are meeting today, the Gadigal people of the Ora Nation, and pay my respect to their elders past, present, and emerging. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land. Just a few housekeeping items before we get to the substance. In order to ensure all our voices are heard, the way to interact with today's session is through the app. The code was on the screen a few minutes before. Even if you're in person, and via the virtual platform for those watching at home, the chat function can be found under the Ideas tab, and you can also submit questions which can be upvoted. So you can vote for your favorite questions to make sure they reach the presenters. So please keep that in mind. If you want to ask questions, you have to go through the apps or through the virtual platform. So isn't it exciting to be in Sydney now? Wow. The city is definitely, rise up to the occasion. And really beautiful colors everywhere, but I can assure you that everywhere you go, if you turn, you will see Canada. So it is I'm very proud to say that we have been a great partner to World Pride Sydney and Mardi Gras Sydney as well, which allowed us to bring Canadian performers, movie directors, human rights experts, and film directors, I mentioned that, and musicians as well to the city. So if you do have the time, there's still a possibility to catch some of the wonderful Canadian movies at the Mardi Gras Film Festival with the spotlight on Canada. And also our incredible Jeremy Dutcher will be performing at the First Nation Gala tomorrow night. So it is obviously a great privilege to be here today to introduce this special panel facilitated by one of our own, Kimberly Vance-Mubanga. The Human Rights Conference is an integral and important part of World Pride, and we are very supportive because it does bring together people like yourself and human rights experts, activists to discuss issues that are affecting 2S LGBTQI+ around the world. This is a very important undertaking. As you know, Canada is a very welcoming country for 2S LGBTQI+ community people. We are also very proud to say that we were the fourth country to legalize same-sex marriage. We've also taken even more steps, and then we integrated trans rights advocacy into our laws, and then we enrich the protection of gender expression and identity in our Human Rights Act in 2017. Just this past August, we launched our 2S LGBTQI+ action plan, which is mapping activities and goals for the last 5 years to protect and advance the rights of two-spirit, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, intersex, and additional sexuality and gender diverse people in Canada. This will bring several initiatives forward. It is a very important action plan for our government, and it was based on an extensive consultations with the community. So we feel that it also is very reflective of the needs of the community in Canada. So events like this one today are very important because it does give us the chance to come together and celebrate all the wonderful progress that we've made over the years, but it's also a time to reflect on all the progress that we still have to make before we can truly build equal, inclusive, and diversified societies. So today's panel, and I will ask the panelists to make their way to the stage, but we are very proud to be able to support the travel of two Canadian human rights experts, including today Kimberly, that will be facilitating the panel. Kimberly is the Director of International Programs and Partners at Egale Canada. She's also the former Executive Director of ARC International. She brings with her 20 years of experience advancing human rights for LGBTQI+ persons in various UN spaces. She's also worked with civil society organizations around the world. So I leave you in her very capable hands. So please do enjoy the panel. Thank you.
Thank you. I always hate it when they put that 20 years out there, because then everyone's doing the math. How old is she? Anyway, well, thank you very much for the introduction, and we're very grateful for the assistance of our government. We've got a great panel here today, and we've even cheated a little bit and added a panelist at the last minute, which is going to make it an even better panel. So, bear with us if we're a little bit flexible with our structure today. But welcome. Just in case you might not be in the right room, this is the Rainbow Families panel. So we're going to be talking about families today, and we're going to start off. I won't talk much. I'm going to ask a lot of questions, but I will talk at the beginning just to kind of situate myself in this conversation, because we're going to put a personal face to the topic that we're discussing today before we get into, stuff around work and rights and law and all of that kind of stuff. So, we're going to take 2 minutes each and talk a little bit about our own personal experiences as being part of Rainbow Families. And I'll start us off by saying that I am a proud mom of 2 adopted children from a previous marriage to a woman, and now I'm married to a man who brought 3 other kids into the relationship. So we have 5 kids together. If you sort of calculated there that one was a woman and one was a man, I identify as bisexual, pansexual parent. And in case some of you are wondering where the bi-pan struggles are in the community, when I was adopting my first 2 children, it almost didn't go through because the social worker did not believe that I could adequately talk to my kids about sexuality if I didn't say that you were either born one way or the other. So these are some of the challenges that we face in the spectrum of Rainbow Families. And I understand that some of that bias still persists today within adoption and foster care systems in Canada even. So over to you, Stephen. Let's put a personal face to Rainbow Family.
I'm looking at the clock.
Yep.
I want to acknowledge first the traditional owners of the lands on which we meet today, their elders past, present and emerging. I'm Stephen Page, all the way from Brisbane. I'm with my husband. I'm a dad to a 3.5-year-old daughter via surrogacy in Brisbane. So unlike most Australians who have children via surrogacy, our journey was a domestic one. As I discovered Sunday after the Mardi Gras March, my daughter is much more famous than I am, which just brings you down a peg or two. In my other life, in my job, I'm a family and fertility lawyer, so I've had the honour of helping several thousand, I think it's probably about 2,000 odd people become parents. And that might be through sperm donation or egg donation or embryo donation or surrogacy or adoption. And I must say I was quite surprised that one of my old clients, who I helped become a dad, is in the audience today. And that was the biggest thrill of my life to have that happen.
Nice. Excellent. Thank you. Joleen, put a face to your Rainbow Family.
Mahalo lele, my name is Joleen Mataele, and I'm from the Kingdom of Tonga, not the Queendom of Tonga, but the Kingdom of Tonga. Otherwise, I won't be allowed to go back. I'm a single transgender woman and a single parent of 3 beautiful children, and with the age of 32, 28, and 19. So you can guess my age there. I'm the executive director of the Tonga Leitis Association, which is the only LGBT network in Tonga. And part of my work is supporting trans people or LGBT people who want to adopt children in Tonga, because it's not legal. But through families and connections in the government and the Ministry of Justice, we've been very fortunate that we have the support of the Minister of Justice, who was supposed to be here, but unfortunately he's been called for another job. And so at the moment we have about 5 LGBT persons who have adopted kids back at home, even though the law is still illegal, but we were still able to process the adoption because of the, Tonga is so small, it's only 110,000. You practically know the south to the north, You gossip today, you'll be known tomorrow. And plus everybody's literally related to each other. So you can't hide. So through that work, we've been able to help those who wants to raise children.
Excellent, thank you. Maria, over to you.
Yes, so I was lucky to meet my wife, which I married last year in Switzerland, 25 years ago. And with her together, Swiss people like to hiking. Yes, we were hiking all the time, speaking, let's do it, let's build up family. And years after years, and then afterwards, like being 36, who should start? And I said, okay, I will give birth to the first child. And to be honest, I was not advocating myself at that moment. I didn't knew a lot about politics. I didn't knew about laws or discriminatory laws, because when we started our journey as a family, there was explicitly forbidden for gays to be parents. So that was like the first time, beside all the social discrimination, that laws was, denying my choice of life. And that was the momentum where we decided we have to take into action, because why should we not be able to be parents? So independently of this forbidden, we were able to give birth, which at the momentum of giving birth, I really didn't understand how dumb I could be to say, yes, I want to give birth. By the way, it gets better, and it's a joy of being family. But all this trouble of issues where you're going through, and one of the facts is, by the way, 50% of hetero couples do divorce because family is a challenging issue. So can you imagine if you make this visible, this ice pick of discriminatory laws and stigma? Heteronorm, navigation within the school system, but as well health system and as well legal system. So finally, we did it. We managed. They're still growing up. They are now 13 and 14, and I'm enjoying so much with my family now, Australia, for the first time. And you cannot imagine how powerful it is for our families to see a city colored and proud. And they said to me, Mom, I didn't knew that so many people could support LGBT persons. So that's just to let you know, our families doesn't have border, and we should still keep on empower ourselves. Canada, just make a close thing. I want to say thank you for Mona Greenbaum to inspire us, because thanks to her, we advocate in Switzerland. I want to thank especially Matcha, which is next to me, which I will hand over to her to inspire me and my family.
Thank you so much. My name is Mataele. Before talking about family, I need to talk a little bit about the background that I have been working for 18 years. I defining as ethnic minority, indigenous, born in Thai-Lao border, speak Lao as the first languages, holding the Thai ID cards. We have faced a lot of issues because of the government in our regions, including Thailand, Myanmar, and many countries, do not acknowledge the indigenous people. Our right to land, our right to natural resources that belonging to us are taken away by a lot of restriction and law. That is the background. All of that contributed to poverty and a lot of discrimination that we have faced, included myself, who are defined as a woman, and also lesbian. Access to education, healthcare system, bullying at the school, commit suicide, and even rape is all of my experience. I met my partner, which is 13 years ago, in the trainings. And that I fell in love with her. And we started our journey. We are working as a feminist human rights defenders, and we met each other. We formed our family, that our struggle started. Our family, when we're talking about family, one, we have our own family who are homophobic because of this society not providing any understanding around, acceptance and also diverse societies. And then we formed the family without support from our own family, without support from our community, because even Thailand is defined as one country that's quite inclusive for LGBTIQ. We are not criminalize LGBTIQ, but we are not legalize any kind of law that protected LGBTIQ. Our young LGBTIQ students still face a lot of bullying at the school, including my daughters. We also face the issue when we cannot marry it, meaning that adoption is not the choice for LGBTIQ, and I couldn't adopt my daughter. She is now 20 years old. We adopted her not legally, when she was 9. And she, the first child in our region, I think, that stood for advocate for the right of the child of the rainbow family. She talked a lot about what happened when the law is not protected her mom, but at the same time there is a lot of barrier for her that she faces. For example, she couldn't travel because we couldn't sign the passport. She couldn't do any kind of visa. When she went to the school, there is a lot of questions that left her a lot of traumatized. But the only thing that make her stood is that not only me who faced this difficulty, and I want the child who are behind me not face the same shit that she faced. So she, in solidarity with us at the family in frontline in Thailand, advocate for marriage equality, which actually is impossible already. Like 10 years, we have been advocate very strong, but because of the dictator governments, which actually not only in Thailand, but also Myanmar, also Philippines, also like many countries, and included in Africa as well. So therefore, we are not only define our issue, problem, and the aim to demand, marriage equality. But at the same time, we are also in solidarity with a lot of countries that still criminalize LGBTIQ. Therefore, it's such a long way for us. First, to reclaim the democracy. Secondly, to advancing human rights. But marriage equality is not come the third. It's actually, in line with democracy, human rights, and also legalize of marriage.
Thank you, Matcha. And you'll hear, you've heard from everybody, the desire to form and found families despite whether there's legal obstacles or not. Our communities have found ways for numbers of years to figure out ways to do it, even if the law doesn't allow it to happen. But we are going to talk about law for a minute, Stephen. And if you can use the sort of Australian, sort of as a case study, to talk a little bit about what the legal landscape is like for rainbow families.
So I'll talk about two big groups, and that is female couples and male couples. Mm-hmm. So we talk about female couples. If they live in what we call a de facto relationship, so that they're a couple or they're married, and they undertake some form of assisted reproductive treatment, such as artificial insemination. It can be at home or through a clinic, or IVF. Then they're the parents. The law of the land across the country is quite clear. They're the parents, and any donor is not. However, it becomes complicated because our laws concerning divorce and children allow someone who is concerned with the care, welfare and development of a child to be able to litigate, to go to court about the child. So there have been a series of cases where the women, or in some cases single women, sometimes two women, have been confronted by the man then making an application saying, I'm a parent. And we've seen cases where these have, the two worst cases I would describe was the one 20 years ago, a gay guy supplies sperm to a lesbian couple. He believed he was the father, they believed he was the donor. Court found he was not a parent, but still ordered time with the child. The birth mother took this very badly and killed herself and the child.
Oh,
the worst case that's happened. The other case that is probably the best known was from now 4 years ago, where a man supplied sperm, a gay guy supplied sperm to a lesbian friend who had a girlfriend, but they weren't living in a relationship at that point. He thought he was becoming a parent, and for the next 10 years, that girl called him daddy. His name went on the birth certificate with his consent. The women subsequently formed a relationship, married, had a second child through a clinic-recruited sperm donor. That girl also called this man daddy, and one day he found out that they were going to move to New Zealand. He went to court to stop them, and the women responded, well, you're not a parent. It ultimately ended up in the High Court of Australia, which determined that he was a parent, but they spent something like $2 million Australian between them arguing it by the time they got to the High Court, and then went back for more in the family court. Gay couples, of course, don't conceive that way. We've got to engage in surrogacy, and Australia allows altruistic surrogacy like Canada. We don't allow what is called commercial surrogacy, and if you ask me for a definition in broad terms, that the surrogate isn't paid a fee but is not left out of pocket. So no profit but not out of pocket. Problem. Our laws are not consistent across the country. We have a population of 25 million, the same as Shanghai, but we have 8 systems of law. Nightmare when you've got across the country arrangements which are common. But for every child who is born in Australia through surrogacy, 4 are born overseas. And that's despite 3 jurisdictions, Queensland, New South Wales and the ACT, being very clear, don't engage in commercial surrogacy overseas. But that's where the vast bulk are born. Canada is a destination country, so is the United States, and more Australian children are born via surrogacy in the United States than via surrogacy in Australia. Just let that sink in for a sec. And Australians go to, because we're a migrant country, about 51% of Australians are either born overseas or children of parents born overseas. We have a small number of Australians who go all over the world to countries you would never imagine possible to undertake surrogacy. And this is the very point that you're making, Kim, that as Sir David Attenborough made plain when standing next to an albatross, when there is a barrier, animals will figure out a way to reproduce. And they'll overcome these barriers, and if necessary, they'll seek the help of others, and we do the same.
Interesting last point there. Family law is very complicated. In Canada, when we changed the same-sex marriage, there was a gap between changing the marriage laws and the divorce laws, and you could see this collective panic, like, okay, we all got married, but we can't get divorced. Anyway, Joleen, over to you. I know you care deeply about the education system and bullying and harassment that happens in schools. Can you talk a little bit about sort of maybe how you've experienced that and seen that, and maybe some of the work you do to combat that?
Thank you, Kim. Being a parent, a single parent in Tonga, and a trans person is the hardest thing ever. And especially when you come from a family, founding families of 2 religions, which is the Catholic and the Latter-day Saints. But growing up with my grandparents, we never spoke about religion at all. So everything was very neutral at home. My mother passed away when I was 5 months old, and I was raised by my grandmother. So she was more modern as in English, because she was raised in a surrounding that wasn't a typical Tongan family. And everything was a lot easier for me to do. So when I started raising children, the only thing the issue that she was a bit not finding it easy for me for her to accept it is because I left school when I was 14 years old. And then when I decided to raise children, I said, because these are children, the 3 kids that I have are all illegitimate kids of my nieces that couldn't even supply for them. Then I took them under my care. And, but one thing that I noticed when they grew up, my first 2 didn't go through anything. It's my last kid, who's 19 years old, when this thing with the rugby player who played, the Tongan rugby player who played for the Wallabies, that went viral when he said things about going against LGBT people and his belief, blah, blah, blah. And my daughter had some problem in school. These boys were telling her that, do you know that your mother is not a woman? She's a lady, and she's sinful. She's going to be. And then my daughter, of course, she doesn't shut up like me. She takes after me. Don't shut the mouth when it's supposed to, but. But she answered back, and I said, "Who are you? Who are you? Who?" And she went on and on and on. It went beyond what she was supposed to be, and especially in a Catholic school that she went to, she got called. And then when I was called by the principal to come in and spoke to, and we asked, "How is it? How did it start?" And we found out it was because these boys believe what this rugby player is. I can't even, that shows how I'm not interested I am in him, because I can't even remember his name. So I had to go in and spoke to the principal, the teachers, and when it came to their formal assembly, I got called by the principal to come in and talk about anti-bullying, for LGBT people, and not only that, but for any student in the school. It cost that issue for me to talk to the general school, and from there, it was brought in, the issue of anti-bullying campaign was brought into the teachers or the principals association, and then from there, they asked the Tonga Leitis Association for us to come and speak on anti-bullying in every single school in Tonga. So, I think these are things that we go through. I went through the same thing in school, and I think that's one of the reasons why I left, because I literally spit at one of my teachers because of that abuse. I turned up, then I have a flower or something and I got slapped. I said, "How dare? You didn't give birth to me, bitch." Hello.
You were
I'm
right about
59 years old. I'm
Right
still
about
here.
Yes.
But that's these are things that, from a small island, it's just not hard to, it's hard to go through things when you're in a country that is so rich in culture and religion. And our biggest problem back at home is our people are using religion as culture. They combine the two. And I had to remind them that we had gods and goddesses way before Christianity came into life. So, yeah.
Yeah, thanks. That phrase will carry with us for the rest of the day. Thanks, Joleen. So, Maria, obviously we've heard about some of the challenges and struggles. So how does your organization in Switzerland sort of help families to thrive and survive? Like, what do you do? What services do you offer?
Yes, so the services which we started because we did recognize that there is a need of strengthening each other and advocacy, showing the people we exist, we are here. And the children are doing well. To be honest, the social competence, it's even higher.
Yeah.
So how do you manage to change a law which denies your existence and denies the right of your children? So that was what we did. I mean, it was the first time that first I went to the parliament in Switzerland. As I told you, I was never very aware about the politician laws and everything so far. So I went day by day informing them about, thanks to a long-term research, which we can show that for the well-being of a child, what is needed is establish relationship and make sure that they do develop good. So what we proved was, and what the politician did understood, they had to reflect themselves. And finally, after years of advocacy, they were prepared themselves and open enough to do understand that we are part of the society. And if they are talking about children, our children is within on it. And that lead to the strength that meeting each other, discuss each other, learning from each other, to show the children that they are not alone. Because, like moments, I remember our son, we were always just telling them story a little bit before going to sleep, and seeing him saying like, Mom, did you know there are so many hetero people there outside? And, like this, I was, yes, I know. It's in fact. But afterwards as well, even to understand, and when we achieved in 2018, where at the momentum our children were already 11, and I just want to remind you, I mean, like this daily by daily, taking the responsibility of be parent and know if something happens to me, my wife, I'm not sure what exactly, how allocated will be the children. So, all this stressy situation that you as a couple, but I want to spotlight as well something, social parenting, there is as well some power issue within the relationship between biological, social, not being legally recognized to your children. We do as well split. So all these stories which had harmed our children and had led to it that they were not able anymore to be with their parents because maybe there was a power issue with the biological and the social, and the biological parent decided, no, I don't want that you can see anymore. Do you have any relationship with this? All this harm that has caused in all the years, or even legal authorities which said, no, this child should not be in this environment, it's not good for development. So all this part of beautiful things and the advocacy which we have done to make sure that the families come together and counsel together, that has led that we were strengthening each other, and we did understand whatever happens, even if we split together, even if we don't have the legal recognized, our children deserve the parents which they grow up. So let us make sure that we as first, we are parents, yes, we know, sometimes we do have relationship with it, sometimes we decided to be parent without relationship, but at least we make sure that our children, they don't lose from one day of the other the connection to one of the other parents. And that has led, and how to navigate the heteronorm, because to be honest, our children, like every day coming out, I mean, I just remind us how difficult it was, and some of us still are in the closet, so it does something with them. They do recognize the structure which does denies these values on a real family. So it's always like navigating and making sure that there are not spotlight out like any. We always did advocate our children, you know, like when they came back and they said, you know, they don't believe that you're my mother. You know, that hurts for a child. Oh. It hurts him as well. I'm sorry. But that hurts a child to understand that they don't know their life or they don't know about LGBT. So finally, our children are advocating for ourselves, but sometimes they don't feel it. And they're using the words, you know, like, oh, you know, my parents. Mm-hmm. Or, you know, like situation on buses, and where is your father? Oh, here, I mean, even here, you know, sometimes like, and where is your father? That has a point which is covered all the time because they are in this heteronorm. So what we are trying to advocate is like, our families are diverse, and let the children speak out in which kind of families and environment they are growing up. So,
thanks, Maria. That's very interesting, some of the points you've raised. And Matcha, I know that you've sort of dealt with some of this in your work too. I mean, you described some really obvious barriers, like including just not having access to documentation. How have you worked around trying to adjust some of those policies and laws that are affecting you?
We actually working on the ground, meaning that based on our work, we have been able to support young indigenous children who are defined as non-gender conforming. You know, the child not defined as LGBTIQ, but they just not fit in like, you know, heteronormativity or not fit in, you know, gender roles. And that's the violence happen at their home. Their family are, you know, hit them, beat them, or the girl who are, you know, not fit in the gender role are not allowed to go to school and forced married when they're age under 18. So all of that is in our accountability on how we can, you know, working with the school to ensure that the child with, you know, any gender and also diversity are protected. Therefore, we bring that into the advocacy at the national level. In Thailand, we have been working on the school tech with actually 10 years of advocate because the tech teaching like, you know, don't be friend with LGBTIQ, you know, a lot of things very taboo, very violent, and allows a lot of sexual harassment happens among the child and also between the teachers themselves and also between the teacher and also students. But the issue related to that is that our child also go into the school. And we also need to like prepare our child. A lot of questions that could leave our child trauma. We started to like talking with the teacher in the school that, you know, this is our work, this is our advocacy. If you want us to come here to talking about stop bullying, please invite us. And this is our daughter, you know, like we started to prepare that. But then bring that into like the national level, like a lot of child who are under rainbow family faces a lot of difficulty. My daughter also wrote article, you know, giving interviews, and all of our family also like interview. But it's come to the point that, you know, some young LGBTIQ walk to us and saying that you are inspired. We never think about our future that we can be together and have the child. And you have such a beautiful family, you know, now we are the runner. We bring the rainbow flag to run like 50 kilometers, you know, and to promote inclusive spaces for rainbow family and LGBTIQ people. We become a model. But then that not be the case, you know, all of our, you know, LGBTIQ community are so diverse. And we face the social exclusions. Many of our friends couldn't even like have a child, or if they have the child, they faced a lot of issue around economics.
Right.
So we don't want to promote that we are like the model, but we just, like so diverse, but it's also possible, even the law not allows. So therefore, this is also like dialogue with the governments. We have been like engaging with UPR process, try to report and try to advocate within our society. And years ago, the Thai lesbian couple went to the court and trying to ask the court that is the discrimination against LGBTIQ when we not, be able to marry. And the court made decision that, but you're against the, nature, you cannot like give birth or blah, blah, blah. And then what we did is that we running like 100 kilometers to protest, and this is the reality that we face it, like we're not safe at the school, the government do not do enough for us. Social acceptance, to be honest, for the younger generation in Thailand, when they awake because of we are not democratic process, is not developed for them and they couldn't see the future. They kind of address, challenging that the young people are faced, included a lot of LGBTIQ and feminist are faced. So now the 100% from the young people are support marriage equality. But we under the hierarchy that a lot of own guys who are homophobic are in the power, and they made decision to violate our rights. So that our long fighting.
Right, yeah. Macho is one of those special kind of activists that I don't understand that does activism through running marathons. I totally don't get it, but I totally respect it. Yes. And like, if you follow Macho on Facebook, like everything is a marathon and a flag. It's amazing. Yes. We only have like less than 5 minutes left, and I was told we wouldn't have questions, but I see two that have popped up on the screen in front of me, so I'm not sure I'm supposed to deal with them or not. But maybe we can just try to tackle them very quickly. There's one about laws, Stephen. I'm just going to put that on you. Like,
Can I answer the first one?
Yeah.
First?
Okay. Sure. There's 3 questions there. Okay. Quick. We have to be quick.
How can we queer our rainbow families while also having to at times assimilate into traditional notions of families? For example, 2 parents, monogamous, married. My daughter is 3.5. When she was 18 months old, she was in a childcare centre in inner city Brisbane, where you would expect there would be lots of rainbow parents. Mm-hmm. She was the only one who had 2 dads or 2 mums, or in fact 1 mum or 1 dad. And at 18 months, in a childcare centre with outside school hours care, had 165 families. It's a huge number, only 1. Mm-hmm. She recognised at 18 months she was different. Mm-hmm. And she then called my husband Dad and me Daddy, and the names have stuck ever since. But she recognised, so it's coming from her. Mm-hmm. Your family is unique to you. Mm. Identify it how you see it. But nevertheless, the centre staff said such delightful things as, well, your relationship will be unlawful where I come from. Lovely. Or we get cards for Mother's Day, or one on Father's Day. So we have moved childcare centres. And we are now at a more accepting childcare centre. I was president of the old childcare centre, I might point out. So, each family is unique, and take power of that. The reality is that when you're raising a child, every day is a struggle as well as a joy, isn't it?
Very much. Very much.
Probably more said in your house
It's a challenge,
than mine, I
but it's
suspect.
true.
Certain years are more struggles than joys.
But it's taking advantage of it, and celebrating being parents, and celebrating having your child and loving your child.
There's another question about same-sex parents, and do the laws protect the non-biological parent in terms of like a breakup or a divorce? And that it depends on where you are. I don't know if that's an Australia-specific question. I know in Canada, for instance, the answer would be yes. Like if you are recognized as a same-sex couple, for instance, you both parents have the parental rights, even if one of the child is a biological child of one of the partners. But that might not be the case everywhere. I think that really depends on where you are in the world. There's one for Switzerland, Maria. Even after marriage equality, did you need to obtain joint legal custody?
Yes, but we don't have the same equal marriage equality as hetero couples. The original parenthood will be only recognized if you're using Swiss sperm banks. If you're using abroad, it will be not recognized and you have to go through the step adoption.
Ah, interesting.
It is. So you
Swiss
see,
do
it's
things
still-
so interesting.
Oh.
Okay. There's also a question about basically how do we make this more accessible without tens of thousands of dollars to still have, they're all switching around the questions. Tens of thousands of dollars to go through these processes. I mean, I guess it depends on how you're doing it. If you're using highly expensive technologies, then there's big bills attached to that.
We've got 26 seconds
Yes, I
left.
know.
So I'll just say, we're lucky in Australia we have Medicare subsidies, but not for surrogacy. And it's been an exception since 1990, and it's a disgrace. It's really, it's certainly something I've called on the health minister to abolish, and he said, refer to the Senate inquiry on universal access to reproductive health care, which was a surprise to those senators. So hopefully we'll have a change soon.
Yeah.
And 1 second, I will just say that in Canada, in my experience, we adopted from the foster care system. So our total bill for 2 children was $500 each for legal fees. That's it. Thousands of kids are available for adoption who are sitting in foster care, and they all need loving homes. So we were out of time, and I'm trying to be conscious of the other panels have gone over time. So I want to thank our panelists immensely and encourage you to engage with them throughout the conference. I'm sure you got lots of questions, so thank you so much.